Edgin Darvis's life is a mess. All that he has left are his loot, his dashing good looks, and his daughter, Kira. After a chance encounter with badass bruiser Holga, Edgin is forced to take a hard look at his bad choices. But the road to redemption is long, and parenthood is expensive. Fortunately, the world is full of rich fools begging to be parted from their money. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Hembar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Jaleigh Johnson's Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, The Road to Neverwinter. The Road to Neverwinter is a 2023 novel by Jaleigh Johnson. It is the adult fantasy prequel novel to the upcoming movie that is Honor Among Thieves. This one shows us the origins of the party that are the protagonists in the movie. I have already reviewed the Druid's Call, which is the YA prequel telling us of the tiefling druid Dork. Dork is not in this book, of course. So as opposed to Johnston, who wrote the Druid's Call, Johnson is a Forgotten Realms veteran. She has written a couple of Forgotten Realms stories. In the past, I've read one of them. So in the story, though, we have Edgin, who is playing with his daughter at the beginning, Kira. It settles into him telling a story of his past, and it starts on the Sword Coast when he was recently a Harper agent. The framing narrative is cool and a great setup, I thought. As we know, Edgin will survive, of course, but we really knew that anyway, since he's the main protagonist in the book and in the upcoming movie. We also get some interludes back to the bedtime story of just him chatting with Kira. At the start of the story, though, Kira is a newborn babe. Edgin's wife is recently deceased, and he has left the Harpers as a result of her death. He lives in, at first, an unnamed village on the Sword Coast, and being part of the Harpers, he was once a entertainer, a bard, but now he's just a single father, though part of the prologue seems to imply he may have found a new partner, or at least someone lives with him, right? Which seems like it's a promise of either some potential romance in the novel or movie. Don't get your hopes up there, though, really. So he passes out at a tavern because he's tired, I guess, with a baby, and he shortly meets the Uthgard barbarian woman, Holga, of the Olk tribe. She is, similarly feeling lonesome. We'll figure that out later why, but I won't tell you why. It's quite a unique start to a Dungeons & Dragons adventure, a widower father and some barbarian meeting in tumultuous inner times, like internal tumult, but peaceful on the outside, in some sleepy village. The first couple chapters are also 9 years before the rest of the story. So then we actually have some stuff like the Zentrum are present, only for a little bit, but that is more realm stuff than the Druid's Call had in its entirety. So we also have, references later on to gods like Saloon and Lathander, which is awesome. And we have this Zentrum agent named Pindra, who is a pawnbroker and he has connections to the Black Network, of course. In those 9 years of Edgin and Holga have made a living as thieves, a sort of odd Fafhrd and Grey Mouser, almost. But as Kira gets older, she actually joins the party, which is pretty cool. Actually, again, it kind of goes back to that widow or father thing going on, with this like semi-adoptive mother for Kira and Holga, but like not really at the same time. So he also technically lives in Targus, we find out, which is one of the 10 towns in Icewind Dale. It's not spoken of as being particularly cold early on, so you could mistake it for a village nearer to, Neverwinter. But the Trip and Shuffle is mentioned and seen, which is cool. That's, of course, tavern, for those unaware. And so Edgin is a bard. He plays the lute. You don't see it a ton in the story. It would have been cool if it was more realm-specific, like the Yartine or something, but, most realms bards still play the lute, so who cares, really, just being picky. Eventually, again, the party takes form, though, because this has to set up the party for the movie. That's with the trickster, Forge Fitzwilliam, who Edgin meets playing cards. I believe it's Three Dragon Gamut, if I remember correctly. With a name like Forge, I think he'd be a dwarf, but that's because of my Dragonlance influence, which the tiny part I have, but still. And then we also have Simon Omar, who comes even later, but he does join the party eventually. He has an inferiority complex because he's a fledgling sorcerer, but he's related to Elminster. So he's actually in the Druid's Call, barely. And then the jokes are very recent movie fare, I'd say. They probably make you smile when they're on the big screen, but I was waiting to laugh out loud. I never did, which isn't a big problem. I don't laugh at most novels, even funny ones, but I do laugh at some novels, so I guess it could have been better in that aspect. potatoes are mentioned several times, so if you like potatoes, I guess, that might be fun for you. In this story, though, the themes are kind of largely around what makes someone a hero, especially when we have thieves here, and in a lot of ways they're anti-heroes, but are they still heroes? I would say yes, but that is for Edgin to discover as well. This also is connected to the father-daughter relationship that I feel is very rare in fantasy, so it's kind of cool to see explored here. In that sense, it almost makes it more YA in a sense, but it's also not at the same time. So, and as far as Realms lore goes, Johnson satisfies me where Johnston didn't. We get things, like from 5e, so like Icewind Dale, but Neverwinter, has been ignored up to in 5th edition up to this point, so that's kind of cool, and that's my favorite place probably on the Sword Coast. And this is in the late 1490s DR. For those curious, the novel ends a year before the movie, and we know Forge Fitzwilliam is the Lord of Neverwinter in that movie. I don't really know how that happened. I'm not sure what happened in Doggo Neverember, but I guess we'll figure that out in the movie maybe. But this was a fun story. But, it's not amazing. It's not the best I ever read in the Realms. It does seem like a good setup to the movie, though. You have a party of characters that you potentially will care about because they've been set up already in this whole novel. If the movie interests you, you might want to read this novel. It's not very long. It's pretty easy to read. Again, is Chris Pine, so if you want to have Chris Pine in your head the entire time, then, that's cool. Whatever. Anyways, Liam Lyceum. I'll catch you next time.